Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Feeling Seen, the podcast that talks about the movies and characters that make us feel seen. This is an episode, this is a guest that I feel like I've been building up to for some time now. If you listen to the Oddsterion podcast that I do, you will definitely know this guest from the fact that the Oddsterion movie podcast became an I Know What You Did Last Summer, this series episodic recap podcast when that show was going. You, if you are smart, have seen her in the underrated little gem Riot Girls. You might have seen her in Annabelle Comes Home, the Jumanji movies, the Amazon Blumhouse collaborative movie Nocturne, starring alongside Sydney Sweeney, in which occurred one of my favorite horror scenes of that entire year. Now she is coming up in the movie Witchboard. I've even seen her on the sides of buses. For a television show that she is currently appearing on. Madison Iseman, welcome to the show, and what else do the people need to know about you before we get going today?
The people need to know I could use a nap.
Thank you for being here. I absolutely believe you could use a nap, and I absolutely am sure that you are in the middle of a marathon right now, so thank you so much for joining us.
Listen, we will sleep when we're dead, you know?
Until
then,
true, yes.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a fan of yours. I really love what you do.
Thank you.
I'm very sad I never heard the I Know What You Did Last Summer podcast. I feel like I need to go listen.
We didn't mean to do that, but then we started watching it, and we just had so much to say that we were like, we just need to record about this after every episode, and had an absolute blast. And when Brianne Chu was in the movie Unhuman, I was like, I need to get Brianne Chu of the I Know What You Did Last Summer television series on this podcast. So we have, and here you are. My hot streak continues.
Amazing. And we love Brianne. This is a Brianne fan page.
Okay, so Witchboard is the movie that you have coming out soon. I fucking love a cursed object horror movie. This movie looks really nice. When I was watching it, it was really pulling me into almost like a Drag Me to Hell, kind of like a sort of not a forgotten sensibility, but an almost kind of vintage sensibility in how it was shot, the coloring behind it, like the practicality of the effects that comes up in it. Again, a classic cursed object space with the pendulum board, the Witchboard.
Where's Emily?
There is such a thing as destiny, and hers is not with you.
If you liked that, then you'll love this.
Were you familiar with the homoerotic horror classic that was the original Witchboard before you came on? Because I know you're a longtime horror fan.
I am a longtime horror fan. I'd never seen it.
Okay.
To be honest,
Didn't expect that you had. This is not an A-list prior title, for sure. This is so much fancier than original Witchboard.
I was told very early on that it is very different. They basically took the IP and sort of ran with it, which, it's 2025. That's kind of what everyone does nowadays, I feel like. But, what really sold me, being such a longtime horror fan, was Chuck Russell. You've got Dream Warriors, The Blob. He's a legend. He's been around forever. And so I had some really great conversations with him early on. And also in the same way, I love anything genre. I love horror. I think it's the funnest thing to tackle for me. It's sort of like, in a way, you can be so dramatic, but there's also, there's no rules, I think, is what I've always loved about the genre. So you can sort of go all the way there if you want, and it's not absolutely insane. It doesn't need to be contained. It's contained in whatever you and your director sort of want to tackle and what you want to do. So always been a huge fan of the genre. And I was a huge fan of Chuck. And also, honestly, the biggest part of the script when I read it, as you can see, I'm sorry, my cat is literally here right now. But
the fact that he's being quiet, the fact that your cat is being quiet, that cat's a champion. I have an orange cat 2 doors away that I'm sure is making so much noise to get in
right
here
now. She's playing with my cord, so we'll see how long this goes.
You're like, we'll go till sound cuts off. That'll be the end of the conversation when sound cuts off.
But a big part of the script was and I remember my agent called me for the first time, and he was like, I'm going to send you the script, and it's got your name written all over it because there are cats everywhere.
Okay.
And I said, okay, amazing. Let me read it. And cats are a huge storyline. And I love working with animals. I'm a big animal person. And I've always wanted to work with cats. And so I was like, you know what? Chuck Russell, cats, scary objects, demons, Jamie Campbell Bower. I'm sold.
That guy. I was watching this and he's so handsome, but there's something kind of destabilizing about his kind of beauty that he is possessed of. And watching this, it really crystallized for me that like I was experiencing in him, he's kind of like, he's the one who he's our exposition guy in terms of the Witchboard and of questionable agenda. And he knows more about it. This is a movie that is set in New Orleans. So there is that sort of pervasive aura of witchcraft and spiritualism that even comes through when like we're not interfacing with the board. It's a landscape rich with history and with aura in that way. And Jamie Campbell Bower was giving I was like, God, this is like, rest in peace to Julian Sands, one of my favorite weird presences in the history of movies. And I was feeling so much of that kind of strange, beautiful, possibly predatory, possibly like very seductive energy coming from him. I was like, wow, is Jamie Campbell Bower the heir apparent to Julian Sands? Like, does this man have a career as being like Vincent Price? Just like caught from movie to movie and give me Jamie Campbell Bower just guiding me through a haunted house, basically.
100%. I mean, like that man could recite the dictionary. Yeah. And like, I want to listen to it.
He's mesmerizing. There's something foreboding and inviting about him.
Absolutely. No, that's the best way. That's the best way to explain him. Because even also with this character, he plays Baptiste, which is this sort of like cult leader.
Yeah.
Intriguing, dark man. And he has all the exposition in the film, which thank God, because he delivers it so beautifully.
Yeah, like it feels like an event when he's doing it.
Yes, and when you're there in person too, you sort of just can't help but just like stare into his eyes and listen, and you're like, oh my gosh, can you say that again, please?
Yeah.
No, he's also such a gem of a human. Like we had so much fun together. He grounds this character, which on the page, you know, it's a little wacky. There's a lot. Yeah. He's got a lot to say.
He wears his tiny spectacles at one point at like an impossible angle while he's reading something. I was like, that's a kook. That's a kooky man right there.
He does it so well, and you believe everything that he says. So we were so lucky, I think, to have him in that part. And I think he elevates the movie in a way that it just takes it to the next level, and he's so good in it. I'm such a huge Jamie fan.
You're a leading woman. You're a striking presence. And I was interviewing once Alexandra Daddario, and she talked about something that was so freeing about working in horror, which she has done quite a bit, obviously. But at this stage in her career, where she felt like she could really take ownership more over her roles and her parts, and not feel so much like as a young actor, like I have to say yes to everything because I don't know when the next job's going to come. And she had stepped into this confidence as a veteran actor, and what she felt so comfortable about in horror, as she talked about at the time, was that there was a freedom to be unseemly. There was a freedom to be over the top. And she was like, this was one of the first times I've ever been in a movie where I wasn't worried about how my face was sitting when I said something. And I wasn't worried about like, am I the prettiest I can be in every shot? Because I'm going out of my mind. I'm going nuts. I'm not supposed to be that. And she felt that was very liberating. And I wanted to hear from somebody, you know, in your position who has done so much horror. And one of the things I loved so much about I Know What You Did Last Summer was the range you had to embody playing the twin characters that you did in that. And there is a lot of emotion, and there is a lot of like there is breaking down sort of mess that happens in some of these scenes.
Can you not see how psychotically fucked that is?
Do fucked up shit all the time. Doesn't mean anything.
I don't believe you.
I don't give a shit.
You can push me away all you want. And I know you. I know you love me. And I love you too.
If you knew me at all, you'd know that I don't give a single flying fuck about you.
And I wanted to hear about playing within this sort of like messy space of horror in a very polished and sort of beauty purveying industry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always like, take off all my makeup, like let's get as ugly as possible. And I actually very agree with what she said is there is something so liberating about just being completely raw. And then there's just really nothing to think about. There's nothing holding you back. It's like, let's get as ugly as possible. I think that's the most interesting human form, you know, just to see someone completely like their walls are completely down. You're not looking in a mirror. You're just fully you're fully there. And that is like in horror, you're way less thinking about the appearance. But it's funny, the I Know You Did Last Summer of it all. I've never really spoken too much about this. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, mentally, emotionally. It was, I mean, you watched it. The content of the show was we played very bad people.
Yeah.
And we experienced some very, what's the word? Just dark subject matter. And there's also, we play with, identity too. I learned this lesson, I think, really during that time filming, where I needed to be and can still continue to try to be very cautious of the roles I take, because I am one of those actors that I used to think I wasn't, but over time, I'm definitely becoming one of those people who sort of wear my clothes home.
Got it.
I take pieces with me. So that was a tricky one. It was in the middle of COVID, which thank God we were in Hawaii, which was the best place to be quarantined, but we were stuck. We were stuck on an island. We couldn't see anyone. It was very isolating.
Wow.
It was a hard job. And I played this character that pretended to be somebody else, was very depressed. We really went there in a lot of ways, and I stretched myself in a lot of ways, but that one took me a long time to bounce back from.
Okay.
And I'll always be grateful for the lessons with that show, but I've seen it once. I've never finished it all the way through.
That'd be tough to, like, if especially like having such a rawness for it personally, to dip back into it and be like, I'm gonna put myself back there. That feels like a big lift.
Yeah, and it was because it was a really, really tough one. And it's funny because I hear, and maybe that's why I feel so open to share it right now, is because I do feel like no one really talks about it. Because listen, sometimes you're so lucky you get on these projects with like the most amazing people, and those are the projects that make it all worth it, right?
Yeah.
That's like what we do this for. But sometimes that's just not always the case, and sometimes, and that's why I'm so grateful for like great cast members like Brienne, who we just fully supported each other, because it was tough. It was a tough show. So now I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever go back and play anyone that depressed ever again.
Sure, yeah.
Because that was a tough one to get through. But
Yeah.
But it is, as far as like, because it's so funny. I know What You Did Last Summer was technically horror, but in some ways, it was like more of like a mental horror than it actually was scary killer.
It was a psychological thriller played out over the backdrop of the I Know What You Did Last Summer guy who knows what you did last summer, hunting you down. Well, I think this is. I mean, it couldn't be a more sort of like appropriate transition into the character that you have brought to discuss today.
Yes.
Tell us who you have brought to talk about.
Shelley Duvall's lovely Wendy from The Shining.
Wow.
It's really nice up here, isn't it?
I love it. I really do. I've never been this happy or comfortable anywhere.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast you get used to such a big place. I tell you, when we first came up here, I thought it was kind of scary.
I fell in love with it right away. When I came up here for my interview, it was as though I'd been here before. I mean, we all have moments of deja vu, but this was ridiculous. It was almost as though I knew what was going to be around every corner.
Okay, so lifelong horror fan. As I understand it, you like made little horror short films with friends like growing up. You've always been a fan of the genre too. You clearly made so much in the genre. We're talking about like emotionally draining experiences and like making a film. Where was your first exposure to The Shining? How did that come into your life?
I was so young, and I was newly introduced to horror through actually one of the very first horror franchises I ever watched accidentally was Saw. I think we watched like as many of them that were out at the time.
Honestly, they're best watched back to back to back to back, like a streaming marathon.
But we did. I was like, oh my gosh, this is absolutely insane. After that, I became like the biggest James Bond fan. I was like, this is awesome. And I also just like, I fell in love with the thrill of horror. So then I started tapping into more and more Like got in like to The Ring. The Ring was like an all-time favorite.
Still the scariest PG-13 movie ever made. Ring, scariest PG-13 movie ever made.
PG-13?
PG-13, girl. PG-13. Come
that
on.
should be illegal. That's crazy. You want to know how screwed up I was as a child? I went to like a children's a sleepover with my friends. And
I went to a children's sleepover.
And I burned, way back when we used to burn DVDs, I burned the video on a DVD. Yes. I put it into, I think we were going to watch Princess Diaries.
Wait, you tricked people?
Oh, and we played, we watched the whole clip, and my friends were traumatized. And that's the type of friend I was when I was younger. To be honest, I'm still that way. So,
have you heard about this videotape that kills you when you watch it?
What kind of tape?
A tape. A regular tape. People run it, I don't know. You start to play it, and it's like somebody's nightmare. Then suddenly, this woman comes on, smiling at you, right? Seeing you through the screen. And as soon as it's over, your phone rings. Someone knows you've watched it. And what they say is, you will die in 7 days.
So then shortly after that, I just got introduced to more and more things of the genre. And I remember the first time I saw The Shining. I mean, even just from like the opening. And also, I read the book right after I saw the movie, actually. Oh. And it really made me fall in love with adaptations too of book to film. I think it's also the first horror film I saw that was also like, it's an art piece. It's beautiful. Like it's one of the most stunning movies.
A true American classic, a true classic of cinema.
And it just became one of those films I just could not stop thinking about. And I feel like I hate to say that it shaped me because but maybe it did.
No, for real.
But it just shook me to my core. I feel, from just like performance to the story to the visuals. And it made me, I was like, this is what I would love to make with my career. I just felt so inspired. And then, the Shelley Duvall on top of it.
I think we should discuss Danny. I think we should discuss what should be done with him. What should be done with him?
I don't know.
I don't think that's true. I think you have some very definite ideas about what should be done with Danny, and I'd like to know what they are.
Well, I think maybe he should be taken to a doctor.
You think maybe he should be taken to a doctor?
Yes.
When do you think maybe he should be taken to a doctor?
As soon as possible.
As soon as possible.
Jack.
Obviously, it's come out more and more recently how her old interviews coming up to surface of how she felt during the whole filming process. Yeah. And maybe that is something that I found, because my own personal experiences too, that like spoke to me over time. And it is so interesting because she gives one of the most incredible performances, I think, in horror history. Yeah. Like, she's so captivating. It's terrifying. You can just feel her pain, and I always think about it. I never stop thinking about it. And anytime I tackle anything that is horror related, I feel like that's always my go-to of like, that was the default, It was her, it was that performance.
I just want to go back to my room.
Why?
I'm very confused. I just need a chance to think things over.
You've had your whole fucking life to think things over. What good's a few minutes more gonna do you now?
Stay away from me. Please.
But yeah, it broke my heart to hear later on in life how she felt while she was filming.
Yeah, kind of like broadly terrorized by Stanley Kubrick as she was making this film, and it's so like you watch this and he was going for an objective. He was essentially going for the objective that he got. It seemed to be an ends justify the means situation for the filmmaker and his star. But even someone being in a bad way, someone being broken down, that doesn't mean they're going to be able to show up to work that day. Like, that does not mean that, I'm going to intuitively lane change from, like, I'm going to take all this workplace abuse and I'm going to say use it. That is not an automatic switch. Like, whatever she was subjected to on this set, what you see on that screen is the ability and the range and the skill of Shelley Duvall, in spite of, I would believe, what was going on with her, and not because of it. To me, it lifts the performance even higher, not because she channeled what she was going through, but because she was able to channel through what she was being exposed to.
Which I love that you said that, because it is like, and listen, there's lots of different types of actors.
Of course.
There are some people who go so method and like nothing but respect. Yeah. I don't know if like I could mentally do that to myself.
Yeah.
And everyone has their own process. But I fully believe the best performance you can get is when you are feeling respected, when you are made to feel like you are meant to be there, when when you're confident and when you're in your space and you can own it. And I think I've learned that over time. Yeah. And at least that's where I feel like when I can do my best. And I would love to, there's probably a different universe out there where Shelley got to have that experience.
Yeah.
And like, I'd be so curious to see her performance as well. Cause I'm sure it would be, listen, her performance is absolutely 10 out of 10, but like, I wonder.
Shelley Duvall was not a one-hit wonder. Like that, we have a body of evidence of that woman's career to show us what she was capable of.
Yeah.
I grew up with her as Shelley Duvall's Mother Goose's rock and rhyme. And I loved her. Yeah. I love that supercut that goes around the internet every now and again of her just saying, "Hi, I'm Shelley Duvall.
I'm Shelley Duvall. I'm Shelley Duvall."
It's like an incredible drag queen, like Snatch Game set.
Hello, I'm Shelley Duvall. Hello, I'm Shelley Duvall. Hello, I'm Shelley Duvall. Hello, I'm Shelley Duvall. Hello, I'm Shelley Duvall.
And then, like, to know her growing up from that, and then to experience her later on in like, deeply dramatic roles and something deeply horrifying and chilling as The Shining, when you start to be able to appreciate that as, like, wow, that person's so good at their job. I remember that feeling like, wow, this woman is so good at her job.
Yeah, and it breaks my heart. But also at the same time, like, it was that was one of the things I think that made me love horror so much. And even just like, I loved watching unhinged women go there. That was always like, anything I gravitated towards was that. Even like, it's kind of a theme in my life right now. Like, all the books I read are about just women taking their power back, like being messy. I don't know if it's because we're like the 5-year mark of COVID, and I feel like we're all kind of like ready to like get out of our box. Maybe I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I don't know. But like, all of this media and literature that's just all about women just doing what they want is really speaking to me right now. And I think it always has since I was younger, because like, the Wendy of it all, like, I just fell in love.
An opportunity of now that I'm trying to hold on to as hopeful and possibility is true grossness. Like, true messy, true falling apart, shattering, not Superwoman, not keeping it together. We're not talking about anti-heroes. We're talking about, like, truly obliterated on the ground to our barest state, to then hopefully rise again as something we can reforge with more self-determination than ever before. TBD on that one. But, like, yeah, I think that's really interesting. Like, I feel like I'm relating to you on the notion of, like, I'm really in this place of needing to, like, read about people who are just, or see movies about things that are terrible.
Like, it makes you feel like it makes you feel seen, no pun intended.
Sure, yeah.
But it's just like, because I think, as women too, sometimes we're just so, you're put in a box. And like, listen, I grew up in the South, so it's very like, I ran away from South Carolina when I was 16. So I've always been a little bit of a loose cannon as far as like, I've never wanted to live like a cliche life ever.
Sure.
But maybe it is like entering my late 20s too, where I'm just like, I want to be messy. I want to make mistakes. I want to feel human. And I feel like
Well, I feel like your profession is too one that does perhaps at times butt up against that desire with what perhaps might be asked of you as a professional.
100%, 100%. And I've always been very type A. Like I knew what I wanted to do from a young age. I did a lot of it. I accomplished a lot of my goals very young. And I think I'm just hitting a place right now where I'm like, okay, like I did the super head on straight thing. And I just want to mess it up a bit. So I don't know. I'm so feminism, whatever you want to call it, whatever path I'm on right now. I'm so for women being messy, figuring out their lives, doing what we were never told we were allowed to do. And that in cinema too. And I think those are the roles I go for right now. That's definitely.
I was going to say, where is that taking you creatively and coming into your and the benefit of, like you said, you've been doing this for a long time. You found success at a young age, right? Like really when you decided you wanted to come to this town and pursue this career, which gives a foundation under you. It's like, okay, maybe like it's like the benefit of accruing a solid foundation under perhaps a 2 buttoned up 20s means that there is a landing pad for if one starts to decide to make more bold choices, perhaps in their approaching 30s, in their next sort of deca, in their next era. Where do you feel like, what is the room that you feel you have in your life for risk that you may or may not have had before?
Well, right now, more than anything, I think, it's coming off of what we touched on, my experience with I Know What You Did Last Summer, where I felt like that project just kind of crushed me in ways. And what a time in the world broadly and like at an individual level, how we were experiencing COVID and lockdowns to like amplify like a challenging period. Like, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Layers.
And it took a minute and lots of therapy and lots of time to get my confidence back and like honestly even just fall in love with art because I was just sort of done. But I think since then I've like had such a beautiful growing period that like I just refuse to ever let anything like it's mine, it's precious. I'll never let anyone touch that again. Yeah. And so actually I was just in Ireland doing The Rainmaker. Which it's the first time ever I play a lawyer, young attorney.
Okay.
It's a very different genre. It was one of those things too, when it came across my desk, I was like, is this in my wheelhouse? Like, can I do this? It was one of the most challenging roles I've ever taken on in my life. And similar to, listen, I'm one of those people. I take the job home with me.
Sure, yeah.
So I play this girl, Sarah Plankmore. She's fresh out of law school. She joins this super crazy firm, goes head to head with her boyfriend at the time. But she very much learns, she starts so young and naive and full of questions and life, and she's kind and sweet and wholesome. She's one of those people that can make anyone in a room feel comfortable. And by the end, she's so hardened just by injustice and law. And, there's so much that goes on. Yeah. But she learns how to take up space. And she learns how to stand up for herself. And she learns how to be a woman. And she's in a boys club with all of these sharks, these older men in her law firm. And it was funny because as I was filming it, I had a lot of very similar experiences as like the first time I ever stepped into the well in the courtroom. My legs were shaking. Oh my, and I'm a tiny girl. I'm 5'1", so I'm little.
That's petite.
Very tiny.
That is petite.
I'm working with, John Slattery is there, Milo Callahan, who plays Rudy Baylor. He's fantastic. Lana Parrilla, just all these incredible talent. But like Lana's the only other woman who's there in the courtroom with us. And she's tall. She's sassy. She takes up space. And I'm just like tiny woman. Yeah. So I really had to learn to just take up space. And it was the most beautiful experience. And it's so nice to have this after what I did with I Know What You Did Last Summer, because it was the complete opposite. Like when it ended, I cried for days because I was so sad to say goodbye.
It's time for a break. When we come back, Madison will tell us why she loves getting auditions for roles she knows she's wrong for. And then at the end, I will have one quick thing before I go about some really just deeply independent cinema that we want to see supported here on the Feeling Seen pod, and that is the Sundance debut East of Wall that will be playing in theaters this very week. So stick around.
Hello, I'm John Luke Roberts, and I would love for you to give my podcast, Soundheap with John Luke Roberts, a try. It's basically a parody of every type of podcast imaginable, made up with loads of brilliant comedians. It was named the Best Scripted Sketch Show by the BBC Audio Drama Awards, was a finalist for Best Comedy Podcast at the New York Radio Festival, and it has just been nominated for Best Comedy at the British Podcast Awards. Surely, if there are three things you can trust, they're the BBC, New York, and Britain. So give Soundheap with John Luke Roberts a go today. Available from Maximum Fun in all the best podcast apps.
Hi, I'm Alexis.
And I'm Ella.
And we're the hosts of Comfort Creatures.
We could spend the next 28 seconds telling you why you should listen, but instead, here's what our listeners have said about our show, because really, they do know best. The show is filled with stories and poems and science and friendship and laughter and tears sometimes, but tears that are from your heart being so filled up with love.
A cozy show about enthusiasm for animals of all kinds, real and unreal. If you greet the dog before the person walking them, or wander around the party looking for the host's cat, this podcast is for you.
So come for the comfort and stay for Alexis's wild story about waking up to her cat giving birth on top of her. So if that sounds like your cup of tea
or coffee, Ella, we're not all Brits,
then join us
every Thursday at MaximumFun.org.
This is like a silly thing, but like the Las Culturista Culture Awards just happened, and right before we got on this call, I was watching a clip of there was an award this year called Tiny Woman Big Impact, the Eva Longoria Tiny Woman Big Impact Award.
Incredible.
And the winner who came up and accepted her was Quinta Brunson. Famously tiny, famously very successul, Abbott Elementary. And she got up there and gave this like very overly emotional, like crying speech. But there was a part of it where she said, and like there is so much truth to this, where she said, she was like, you have no idea how hard it is to take up space when you physically do not take up space. And it's true. And I think like, but I think this connects to Shelley Duvall. As just like, from just a piece of casting standpoint, her as Wendy Torrance is brilliant because you could not have more of a picture of just naivete and like accepting innocence than the eyes of Shelley Duvall. And I feel that coming too from like Mia Goth, like just somebody where like you can't teach it, you can't train it, you're born with the physical form you have. And in the terms of what Shelley Duvall could convey as an artist just in her physical presence, as a foil to like the very like masculine and like more and more aggressive presence of Jack Nicholson, you have Shelley, tall, bird-like, big eyes, high-pitched voice. And certainly so. Like, I'm sure there was a way that Shelley Duvall had to find out to navigate the world as somebody who, when you get a first look at her, you're probably not going to, you might not be paying her the mind that she deserves. You might not be paying her the respect that she did, especially in the 1970s. This little thin bird-like lady with a high-pitched voice, like, you think people are going to be like, hey, CEO boss lady, come sit at this table. And like, you, like with Quinta Brunson joking around, like with you just saying, like, to be small, women have to learn to take up space over time, I generally believe. But then when you are little, you're compensating for like the diminutive stature that has to both like play against societal expectations and also prove people wrong from a standpoint of just one's packaging. And that is an extra barrier to have to get through.
No, and it's complicated. And and especially, you know, it happens so much, like constantly we're always standing on apple boxes, right? Which is already not fair because like how are you supposed to feel in your body when you're standing on a wobbly apple box?
Yeah, like you really, I would imagine like the job of acting being like, I'm going to train myself to not care that I'm on an apple box now.
I mean, the things we do are absolutely ridiculous. But you get used to it. Or like my favorite was when we were doing Witchboard. Because I'm also just very tiny. I was barefoot a lot. So sometimes when they would do coverage, they would bring in, I had these sneakers that had like a wedge.
Oh, okay.
And I would always hate, because, you know, they'd always say on the walkie-talkies and they'd be like, bring in the sneakers. And it would be like, it was like the walk of shame with the sneakers to bring them to me and I'd put them on, just have like a little bit of height. But it is, I mean, it's something you do just get used to, but doing it in the courtroom, that was definitely, oh my God, it was the greatest experience ever. Like it was, and I tell all my friends now too, especially all my young friends who are young actors, because we're all entering this phase where we're getting older and it's like, what type of roles do you want to play? And it's actually, I do think the roles get better as you get older, which I think I was so scared of for so long. But I'm like, you guys have to play lawyers. You have to, like, I finally understand it. I understand why people fall in love with it. It is just so, and I also think in a way of like, and I think it's why I love the horror genre so much, is like, there's interesting arcs, there's interesting places for women to live in these stories. And I mean, that's like, and back to Shelley Duvall too, I do think it's one of the greatest female characters in horror.
Absolutely.
Of all time. And I would never want them to remake The Shining.
Uh-huh. And you're talking to a, like, in terms of huge Dr. Sleep fan.
I love Dr. Sleep too. And I love that it was so different at the same time. I like that they didn't try to like fully embody what The Shining was. Mm-hmm. And it's funny too, I talked to people a lot about The Shining. A lot of people don't know what The Shining actually is. I feel like a lot of people just think of it as like, which is like, I'm like, you guys are missing the best part of like the actual shine. I'm like, that's the best part of the whole thing with Danny and Tony and
Tony, I'm scared. Remember what Mr. Halloran said. It's just like pictures in a book, Danny. It isn't real.
Yeah, I'm like, everyone always misses the point. I'm like, just watch a TikTok and like let it break it down for you.
there's a TikTok explainer for this.
Yeah, because people watch Dr. Sleep and they're like, I don't get it. I'm like, you just need to just do a little bit of a deeper dive, and I promise you'll get there.
I have to, what you said about like ever play an attorney, that first thing that jumped in my head is the scene in The First Wives Club where Goldie Hawn is describing like the stages of a woman's career in Hollywood.
I mean, don't you want to be able to play parts your own age?
My own age? No, you don't understand. There are only 3 ages for women in Hollywood: babe, district attorney, and driving Miss Daisy.
And like, I'm not saying it's still that narrowly defined, but it does, like, the way you're saying it and like kind of what it can mean to you, it does feel like district attorney can be a very liberating era of a woman's career.
You have no idea. Like after my first day in court too, I'm not gonna lie to you, I remember I was walking out there, my legs were shaking. I remember going to our costuming department. I was like, guys, I think I need different heels. I don't know if these are like, I don't think I can walk in these. But I think I was just so nervous.
Yeah, they're like, Madison, it's not the heels. Like,
you're fine.
Calm down. Yeah.
And I remember I was doing like one of my first talks doing across with someone on the jury stand, and like I'm so out of my element, you have no idea.
Yeah, I would imagine it's like first day of playing a doctor on a doctor show where you're like, I have never said these words, and maybe by episode 3 you're like, I am in it, but like that first day of shooting, it's like, I'm a fraud.
And I'm like, I've done the research, I've watched every movie possible, I've talked to my attorney friends, I've had my attorney friends record my lines for me so I can just hear them say it. Yeah,
good
I'm like, I can put in the emotion, I just need to know like if I'm saying everything correctly, because I just don't know. But I was walking around in the well, and I remember my showrunner came up to me. He was like, "You're doing great, but like, let's pick where you're going and why you're going there." I was like, "I'm just walking in circles."
They're like just like watching her through the monitor. It's like,
where's she going now?
Yeah.
But I will say, after my first day, and I told everyone how nervous I was, but I finished, and I called my mom after the first day, and I was like, I missed my calling. I should have gone to law school. It was so much fun. And honestly, it's very much, it's like theater, you know, because you're performing to people. And it was just like, oh my God, it was just the greatest growing experience. I do feel like I stepped into like a different Madison. And I do think the universe gives you what you need. And I think it knew I needed something. I needed a challenge. And I did. I worked my ass off. And I'm really excited for it. I mean, Witchboard too. Very excited. They're very different.
Very different. And you got to really, like, it's a series. Like, you get to live in that for just a different amount of time.
Yeah. No, it was a full 6 months. It was.
Wow.
I mean, it was just like it was the best. I have so many good things to say about it. And I just like I hope we get to do it again because I would and also we lived in Ireland, which I don't know if you've ever been, but
no, I have not. That's a bucket list.
Oh my God, it was the best.
As a sort of like having done as much genre as you have, and us talking about again like the bigness of the genre, I wanted to hear as sort of like a sort of skill building aspect of an actor and craft working in horror where it is so big, but it's also a genre of dial turning. And that's one of the genius elements of what Shelley Duvall is doing in The Shining is she's not always at a 12. Like by the time she's like messily swinging an axe at her husband and like crying and backing away, she's been building up to that moment. And I recently, one of my recent, just have a fun time watching with friends, Taro Avantika, a delightful actress. I love that in that movie, she is snotty crying the entire time. She's covered in snot cry the entire time. So she's basically always at a 12. And it goes with the silliness of the movie. Sure, it's a popcorn fun time. But Shelley, this is a game of inches that she is playing, a game of centimeters she's playing. And I wanted to hear from you about knowing that bigness is sort of the order of the day, but knowing you got to build up, knowing when to hold back from the big in terms of a craft process of doing a lot of genre work in your career.
I mean, it really comes down to choosing your moments, and it comes down to, I think it's breaking down the script because truthfully, you can play many scenes many different ways, but you really just need to figure out the story you want to tell. And also I think that comes with having a great director who has a vision and can lead you in the right direction, because I do find sometimes if you are just floundering, one of the best examples I can give, I did a movie called Clouds back in when was that? 2019, maybe?
I was gonna say, I think that was pre-lockdowns, yeah?
We were supposed to be in theaters. We were one of the first ones to go to Disney Plus, which was, I know that was a bummer because it was such a special experience. It was, based on a real life thing that happened, played a real person. It was awesome. But, it was a story about a kid dying from cancer. And so, it was a big ensemble cast. And so every scene was so sad. And I remember having these conversations in the beginning of our director was very clear on we need to pick our moments. So we need to go through the script. We need to find where the best places are to hold back and where you want to give it, at least in my perspective, there's the one moment, there's the climax where that's where you sort of give it all. And it does need to build up. And Shelley, she's the perfect example of that too, because it's such a build from the beginning. And also there's some moments too where you don't think it can go further. And she just she brings out more and you're 100%. How do you have any left?
Little pigs, let me come in. Not by the hair on your chinny chin chin. Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in.
So I do a lot of work beforehand where I do try to break down as much as possible. Because I think when earlier on in my career, I did fall into the trap of just you want every scene to be a big moment. And really that comes from such an ego place. But I think that comes with time. And the further along you get in your career, the more projects you work on, the more things you watch and either love or you hate. I do think you just learn over time. And hopefully I think having a good leader is always if you have a good director that can lead you in the right direction, then you're golden.
Well, okay, then my last question then would be, it comes up every once in a while on the show of talking about how things that we experience perhaps a long time ago in our lives, characters that we experience, and then how we watch those movies later on and how the movies are the same. The movies are the same, but we age and our experiences are different. So we connect to things differently that have stayed fixed in time. But the way I wanted to get into this to ask you about was something like The Shining, like the movie stays the same, but what we learn about The Shining has changed. What we know about the greater picture of The Shining has changed, and the way it was made and the making of it. And you've talked about the really challenging experience in working on the Last Summer series, and how like the long-term effects of things like that, like the way that can really. So I wanted to hear from you, I guess, about like, what is the role? I haven't asked anybody this, of like, what is the role of sort of past work when it's not your job to sit and rewatch all the shit you've made? That's for other people to do. We get on podcasts and conversations with you and we're like, so I've seen this thing you've done 9 times. It's my favorite thing ever. And you're like, wow, that was a job I did a few years ago and I haven't really gone back to it since. When one is sort of at a perhaps a new era of their career, or like a new precipice of their career, what is like, is taking stock of the work prior a part of that? And how is the process of yourself growing and becoming either closer to or further from the things that you've already done, and having a living document of it to compare yourself to?
Well, I always believe you can never stop learning. And I think your old work is your greatest gift, even though sometimes it is complicated to watch some things. And listen, some things really early on in my career, I'm like, oh my God. But I do think the only way you learn is experience. So I mean, at least for me, and of course, I think watching like other people's performances and like being inspired, I think that's also the greatest tool. But it is funny because I know some people who don't watch any of their stuff at all, which I do respect. But I think the way I learn the best is by my own mistakes. And sometimes it's hard too, because I know there's even projects where like it'll be edited in a different way, or they'll pick a take where I'm like, really? That's the take you went with? Okay.
Yeah, it's not live theater. Like, there are a lot of versions of what a movie could be by the time you finally see it.
Yeah. So I take everything with me, to the point where this is very nerdy type A of me, but like throughout the year, we get so many, nowadays we do all tapes because nothing is really in person anymore.
Right.
And so I'll go through all my stuff that I did the year before and just kind of take stock and learn and figure out what I liked, what I didn't. I just think you can always grow, and I'm always in the market to grow more. I never want to be standstill. I always want to stretch myself. I always want to surprise myself. I love to take on characters and challenges that I've never done before, which the one nice thing about the audition process and self-tapes is you do get the freedom to do that and to fail. So I love getting a crazy audition where I'm just, my team, they know this too. They'll send me some wacky things. I'm like, oh yeah, like let's go. I'm so not right for this, but like this is my take on it. I don't know. I'm a big fan in taking stock of all of your old work and being at peace with it too. Like there's some things where I'm just like, I was 18. Yeah. Like I was a kid and I've grown. Look how much I've grown. That's a beautiful thing. And if someone tells me they just watched it, I want to go hide.
Yeah.
But like that's for me. And it is hard. You see things with a different lens when you're looking at yourself, but you just have to trust. And I've been lucky enough to be a part of some things that people really love. And even if I don't necessarily love it, I have to trust that like someone loved it and for a reason, even if it wasn't for me. And so I have to take something from that. But no, I do. I bring a little bit of everything with me. I don't think I ever let anything go, except for maybe one job. And we're working on letting that one go.
The exception proves the rule. The exception proves the rule. And my hope is that forthcoming in your life that you take on so many things that you are so joyful about bringing with you afterwards, that it further and further lessens the space that prior experience gets to hold, because it just gets crowded out by what is so much better for you. And thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about everything today. This has been an absolute goddamn joy.
Hopefully we didn't get too far off topic, did we? I could just
here the journey is the destination.
Okay,
so
great.
like it has just been so wonderful to have you, Madison.
Gosh, thank you so much. It was so nice to meet you. No, this was so great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to Madison Iseman. I was not playing at any point. I have been wanting to talk to Madison for years. This was beyond what I could have even been looking forward to. And Witchboard, her new cursed object horror movie, we love a cursed object horror movie, is in theaters this Friday, August 15th. And we really got into it about the I Know What You Did Last Summer series here on this episode. It's a challenging time for Madison, clearly. She is also doing really great work in that show in dual roles. And the audience for that show, it didn't necessarily find the show at the time that it came out, but if you are looking for her to delve deep into some surprisingly substantial slasher TV final girl dramatic horror content, I recommend the series for her work alone. And she also has another television show coming out, The Rainmaker, which also premieres on August 15th and sounds like it was the time of her goddamn life. And we love to hear that. Phoenixes rising from the ashes of our past lives. So thank you to Madison Iseman. And now that one quick thing before I go. As I mentioned up top, there is a movie coming out also August 15th. It'll be playing in theaters. It is via Sony Pictures Classics, and it premiered at this year's Sundance Film Festival. And I had the privilege of covering the premiere screening on its, wonderful step and repeat opening day. And this is it's a really special movie. It started out as a documentary. And of this family east of this town called Wall, South Dakota, and it centers on a family composed of a mother who has 2 children of her own, and then all the sort of informally adoptive young adults, kids that she keeps on this compound that she lives on. Kids who don't necessarily have a better place to go, kids that don't have a good place to go, or maybe kids that don't have anywhere else to go. And doesn't have much. She makes ends meet. And she breaks horses and she gets them prepared for auction. And what started as this filmmaker setting out kind of across the country to find real stories, find good stories. She was near this town Wall and was talking to someone local who said, like, if you want a story, if you want a real story, you go out east of Wall and you look for the Zuniga Ranch. And that's what she did. And the director ended up, I think, essentially living with this family for the most part on the order of, over the course of a couple of years. And as she stayed with them and observed their lives, the documentary format didn't quite feel appropriate for what she was making. But there was too much there with these real people to do something completely spun out of narrative fiction. So it's almost like hybridized, narrativized portrait of a real family playing themselves, real people being themselves, performing a kind of version of their lives that is only slightly removed from the reality of who they are and what they go through day to day. There are sort of dramatic tension elements added, but it is for the most part, again, these are the real kids. This is the real Tabitha Zuniga. This is the real ranch. Scoot McNairy is not really in their lives. He is one of those dramatic inserts to create a plot that moves the story forward, and that is a part of what you'll witness. But the movie, again, is called East of Wall, and there is a tenderness and a sincerity and a uniqueness to this movie that just really took me. And I was so emotional at the premiere, and the family was all there in attendance, receiving a standing ovation when they came out at the end. And it's a lightning in a bottle kind of thing. And I hope that you guys will go support some independent cinema by checking out East of Wall in theaters. And that is our show. You can keep up with us wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us wherever you're listening now to get every new episode in your feed as it populates. You can follow us on Instagram to get even more about the show, more content about the show at Feeling Seen Pod. We are also on Blue Sky. Just search Feeling Seen. If you want to follow me, I'm Jorcru on Twitter and Blue Sky. That's JORCRU. Our theme music is by Andrew Epen. The show is produced by Marissa Flaxbart. Our senior producers are Kevin Ferguson and Laura Swisher, and this is a production of Maximum Fun.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows,
supported directly by you.